A good Sabbath to all my family and friends throughout the world. Blessings to you on this Shabbat morning. May there be a time of wisdom, a time of beauty, and a time of magnificence coming your way. Let us know where you are and where you're listening from and anything you have on your heart that you'd like to say. And again, I wish you good Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom. This is a special week of Torah. We begin a new adventure. We begin adventures in the beauty realm of our King. So welcome to a few quality minutes at the Shabbat table with the Rabbi's son. I call this series of studies Hadavarim Ha'ele, these words. These are the words. These words which I enjoin you this day, Moshe said, are to be upon your heart. You are to teach them faithfully to your children, and you are to talk about them as you sit in your home and as you walk by the way, and when you lie down and when you rise up. And our little time together on Shabbat morning is designed just for that purpose. Let us focus on these words of the Creator. This is the 19th week of the Torah cycle. We are in a parsha known as Terumah. It is found at Exodus 25:1 through Exodus 27:23. It is, as I call it, the seventh installment of the great nation building chronicles of the Torah. So welcome to this discussion and to the places it will take us on earth and in heaven. I like to give a little preview of the parsha each week before we get into the substance of it. And the question in this preview time is, what does the Holy One call on us to think about and to focus on and to draw wisdom and understanding from this Sabbath? Torah is not a haphazard book. It's not a scattered book of wisdom gems. It is a strategic training program, a sequence-by-sequence manual that we do step by step in order to develop into the people He created us, called us to be, to step into the service, to step into the avodah, step into the purpose for which we were created, redeemed, and called at this hour and this time. So what is the purpose? What are we supposed to be thinking about, focusing on, and drawing wisdom and understanding from this week? Well, we're going to use this phrase, Terumah, which is the title that's been given to this particular section of the Torah by the ancients of the nation of Israel. Terumah comes from the first few words of the Parsha, and so we'll get into a little bit about that. But Terumah, this section of two chapters or so, constitutes the next phase of the Holy One's great nation building program. As you remember, the Holy One's been promising to make a great nation out of the seed of Abraham for generations. And just recently, through the Exodus process, He has been making it come to pass. And now He's brought us to Mount Sinai, and He is reshaping us by Creator speak. As it was in Genesis 1, that everything was formed by the words of the mouth of the Creator of the universe. So it is with the great nation He is building. It will be formed from the words of His mouth. It will not be formed by revolution. It will not be formed by political strategy or political theory. It will not be formed by virtue of humans coming together for a common good. It will be based upon the actual speech, the Creator speak of the one who put the earth and the ecosystem and the heavens in motion in the first place. Now, where we are at this particular stage, as we consider what it is we're supposed to be getting this week from the Torah, we are at the time when we are at Sinai. The Holy One has brought His redeemed nation out of Egypt to Sinai, and this is going to take up at least a third of the entire narrative. This Sinaitic initiative is going to take up at least a third of the entire Torah manual. So something important is happening here. It's not something to be blown off or taken out of context. It is in the context of a redeemed people coming to meet with their God, coming to meet with their bridegroom who redeemed them and who is calling them to a great mission and to become a great nation. So Moshe, as we ended last week, Moshe had climbed to the top or the crest of Mount Sinai. the mountain of God, as it's called, because it was covered, shadowed with the cloud of the Holy One, and the lightnings and the thunderings and the voice and the trumpet sound. The private chambers of the Holy One, our King, have been opened. The courts, the chambers, the throne room of the Creator of the universe is being made available for us to visit, at least through our representative, Moshe. I'm not sure if the Holy One wanted us all to come at that particular stage, but only Moshe went, and only he was ready. We proved that at the giving of the Matan Torah, or the giving of the Aseret Hadibrot, the 10 words of defining lifestyle and defining identity that he spoke over us at Sinai. We walked away. We wanted to go to a distance, and the Holy One is honoring that request. But Moshe is beginning to enter into 2 40-day seasons of transcendent vision. Most of us know that Moshe went up the mountain, came down the mountain. Something bad happened, and then he went back up the mountain, and then he came back down the mountain, and things were different the second time he came down. That's the kind of where we are. We're just going that the first time Moshe is up there. Now, in this parsha, in Terumah, the subject matter of the great Sinaitic Creator Speak download, which is flowing like rivers of water. This Creator Speak download's subject matter is going to shift radically. Last week in Parsha Mishpatim, at least the first 3/4 of that parsha, we're discussing the Holy One's perspective on some of the most depressing outworkings of the Ra, Shekat, and Hamas infestation. I'm going to give you the English translations that the King James threw in there for Ra, Shekat, and Hamas. Yes, evil, corruption, and violence or cruelty. There's an infestation or an infection upon the earth, and the Holy One talked about that and some of the ramifications of it. He gave us 20-something hypotheticals or illustrations last week in the Mishpatim discourse of things that people do that are the outworking of the Ra, Shekat, and Hamas infestation or infection. And he told us earlier that we're to counterbalance that Ra, Shekat, and Hamas with something from heaven, something beautiful, something of redemptive power, something of his essence that we bring to the world. And we counterbalance the Ra, Shekat, Hamas infestation in this thorn and thistle world. We don't wait till we die. We don't wait till we are carried away or spirited away to heaven in some regard. We learn to realm travel and take that which is holy from the heavenly realms and bring it into the earth. And this week we're going to change the focus of our download of Creator Speak from the issue of how to handle and counterbalance the Ra, Shekat, and Hamas infestation to what it is we're supposed to carry into, to do the counterbalancing, the beauty realm of the Holy One. We're supposed to bring beauty into this world. We're supposed to be people of beauty. I'm not talking about superficial beauty like the world thinks about. I'm talking about deep beauty that transforms and transcends. I'm talking about the beauty of the holy realm, of the beauty realm, and the holiness of His presence. So I call it the beauty and the holiness of home. We have a home base, and it's not on this earth. Our home base is in the heavenly realms. And you think, well, how can I get there? Well, this is what it's all about. A couple of weeks ago, the Holy One said, when you build an altar, and you do not go up the steps of the altar, lest your nakedness be revealed. And we thought, if we don't go up by steps, we don't ascend in that physical way, how do we get to this other place, to the top? How do we ascend like that if we can't show? He said, I've got a way. I've got a protocol. It's a spiritual protocol. It's a discipline to get you up, and it will involve co-laboring with me to get you up. We're going to talk about that in Parsha Terumah. Terumah is the protocol of ascent. So we're going to talk about this week, the focus of the Creator Speak is going to be on the beauty and the holiness of home. His throne room. His courts, his chambers, the workstations where, in all those places, in the throne room, in the courts, in the chambers, and what occurs and what emanates usward from each of those workstations, each of those courts, each of those chambers. We're supposed to connect in this week and the next, in Parsha Tetzaveh next week. We're supposed to connect over these 2 parshot of all Creator Speak, talking about the heavenly home, the beauty and the holiness of home. and what we're supposed to build on earth to replicate, to be a scale model on earth of what we see. What we're supposed to bring, the beauty and the wholeness that we're supposed to bring to the earth to counterbalance the Ra, Shakkat, and Hamas. Well, that's what the subject matter of the parsha is. And I want to tell you that in this parsha, in this whole discourse of Creator speak, which I label the Mishkan discourse, or the tabernacle teachings, in this part of the discourse, these several chapters that he's going to just talk and talk and talk, we are supposed to listen and absorb and travel with him through his words into this beauty and holiness of home place, this throne room place, this place of courts and chambers and workstations and holiness. I will tell you that in this we will find shadows of the Garden of Eden, past and future. We will find shadows of Mashiach, of Messiah. We will see him, his shape. We will see him begin to take form. We will see what he does, how he lives. We will identify him by what he does and what he accomplishes, not necessarily by facial expressions or titles or names that he's given on earth. We will see him as he really is, not as our limited vision of humanity and belief systems to project him to be. We will see shadows of the true Mashiach arising through this discussion of the heavenly home where he sits at the right hand of the Father. We will see, as I say, shadows of Garden of Eden, shadows of Mashiach arising, and we will see shadows of the kingdom of heaven as it is supposed to come to earth. Oh, beloved, may your kingdom come, we say. Yeshua taught us to pray. May your will be done on earth as it is, after the pattern as we see set in heaven. Well, that's a good kind of introduction to us today, or a preview. So I will say to you now, welcome to the great beauty realm reveal. The Holy One wants to introduce us to things that are in the unseen realm, that people of the earth, the nations of the earth, have not seen, because we are to carry something that they have never seen before, that will attract them, will draw them, will stir them, will move them. And if we don't have that as our testimony, then what do we have? So welcome to the great beauty realm reveal, the ultimate meditation and divine encounter guide for anyone who seeks to understand and operate in the kingdom of heaven. Yeshua might put it this way: introducing the straight gate and the narrow way that leads the broken and the contrite to the courts and into the healing rooms and into the empowering presence of our Creator and Redeemer and Bridegroom King. So the tabernacle chapters, that's what we're into. The tabernacle chapters, the Mishkan, which is the way the Torah tells us to call this thing we call the tabernacle, the Mishkan. The place of Shakani, which is to dwell, to abide, to reside. This place of Shakani, the Shakan, Mishkan, the tabernacle chapter, what does this mean? We're going to be sort of shocked and taken out of our regular orientation this week. We've been thinking about things of the earth, things of bondage, things of hoping to see redemption, but only seeing little fragments of redemption. He wants to take us somewhere else this week. He wants to take our hearts and our minds and lift us up, may cause us to ascend, rise up to the top and see things from the heavenly realms, to sit in the heavenly places with Messiah, with Mashiach. That's what he wants to do this week. So he's going to shock us as readers this week by interrupting the normal flow, the narrative that we get of how the nation of Israel was being formed there at the foot of Mount Sinai. And he's going to give us, he's going to bedazzle us, he's going to amaze us with a set of detailed blueprints, as it were, and specifications and cost estimates that our ancestors were to use. And we are to take a sample and a lesson from in building a scale model of heaven's throne room at the base of Sinai or wherever we may live. Now these tabernacle chapters, this Mishkan discourse, this discussion at least of the tabernacle and what we're supposed to build on earth, bring to earth from heaven, is going to take up a whopping 17 parshot, of Torah. That's a third of the entire Torah. It's going to take up 53 chapters. It'll start now with chapter 25 of Exodus, and it will continue through the book of Exodus, through all the entire book of Leviticus, and the first 10 or so chapters of the book of Numbers, 53 chapters in all, dedicated to the tabernacle and its avodah and its workstations and what is happening in the heavenly realms that we're supposed to replicate upon the earth. Replicate in our individual lives. Replicate in our devotional lives. Replicate in our service to other people. Replicate in our families. Replicate in our communities. Have our leaders begin to flow in this vision of bringing heaven to earth through the various different workstations and avodah, or the services, ministries of the tabernacle on earth. See, if we are to serve as diplomats of heaven's king, we need to have on earth an embassy fit for heaven's king, a command, communication, and control center out of which everything operates, the lens through which we view everything, the prism through which we pass everything, in as far as opinion formation, judgment formation, or agenda preparation. Everything we do has to be passed through this prism of this unseen but real replication of the kingdom of heaven upon the earth. Now, this embassy, command center, communication center, control center that we're building on earth is to be patterned after the heavenly courts and chambers and the throne room which our King uses in heaven. That's a tall order to make it a representation, a duplication, as it were, as much as possible with earthly substances, to make the world see how glorious and how beautiful our King is. As he sits enthroned in the courts and chambers of heaven, where he holds court, where he issues decrees. That is to become our national rallying point and our personal place of refuge, our secret place. Yeshua will talk many times in the Sermon on the Mount about the secret place. Psalmists will talk about the secret place of the Most High. This is what we're talking about, the place where the King holds court, issues decrees, and our national rallying point, the point at which we can always consult in our imagination, but beyond our imagination, to our spiritual life, in our spiritual reality. We can see beyond the normal things of earth and see into this realm. It is to be our rallying point. It is to be the power plant, the source of energy through which we get the direction and the guidance and the energy to follow up on everything he says. It is our command center where we get our instructions and we get our marching orders and we get our disciplines, and we come together to respond and report and be inspected by him. It is to be, this tabernacle is to be our North Star of navigation. And if there is one upon the earth, we use it. And if there is not one physically upon this earth, that does not lessen the fact that it was patterned after the one that's in heaven. It still exists. It does not cease to exist, has not ceased to exist, will never cease to exist. And all it takes is someone who is willing to ascend and connect with it and then come back to earth in normal thoughts, normal conversations, and bring the things of heaven back to earth. You see, we are to learn, be disciplined, to keep our eyes fixed on things above, not things of this earth, not things of politics above the earth, not things of ideology, not things of religion, not things of ethnicity, not things of political philosophy. None of those things. We are to keep our eyes fixed on things above and process everything through that lens. And we're to keep our ears tuned to the true tone that flows from our headquarters, from our heavenly home. And we are to never let that which is earthbound drag us back into the bondage to the nations that we have experienced under Egypt or in Babylon or in Laban's house. Now you see, this is the challenge, and this is why he gives us this vision of the tabernacle, and he will build upon that vision for the next, 17 Parshot of Torah, next 17 or so weeks of our study. It's a good start, though. So let's do our call to worship, our baraku, the blessing, before reading the Torah. Join me if you know it. If you don't, just let your eyes be closed if you can, and just let it flow over you. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Ken, amen, so be it. Now may you open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are just strangers on the earth. So do not hide your commandments, your directions, your instructions from us. Okay, digging into the Torah. Near the end of last week's Parsha Mishpatim, at the end of the heavenly antechambers narrative of Exodus 24, 1 through 18, specifically at Exodus 24:12, we read this, that the Holy Ones told Moshe, "Come up, Allah, to me on the mountain." Now, all 74 of the people who had been chosen as representatives of the tribes of Israel had come up to meet and have supper in the presence of and gaze upon the beauty of the king in his sapphire throne. But the Holy One now says to Moshe alone, "Allah, come up to me on the mountain, and be Hayah, become, be who you really are, and I will give you tablets of stone, and the Torah, and something that we haven't talked a lot about, something new, and mitzvot. So I will give you the tablets of stone, I will give you the Torah, and I will give you the mitzvot that I have written for you to teach them." Yes, the Holy One is making some bold promises to Moshe, and through Moshe to all of us, because he says that Moshe is to teach these things, yara them, lay them out for us and model them for us. Well, that was the call that was ended last week's Parsha, basically, and it is now time for us to join Moshe in the realm traveling adventure. Exercise 2 of realm traveling. Our primary challenge this week will be to learn to escape the negative drawing power of that on earth which is profane and mundane, sensual, common, ordinary, and unclean. We have some escaping to do. We have some bonds to break. Some negative draws of energy that come from the Rosh Hashanah and Hamas infection down here. We need to escape these things, and he's going to teach us protocols to escape this and break those bonds, learning to escape the negative draws of the profane, the mundane, the common, the sensual, the ordinary, and the unclean. Oh, are you ready? Are you ready to transcend those things and then come back and show a more excellent way to the people who are still trapped in those? We are to learn to escape those things, and we are also to catch a breath from heaven that empowers us and inspires us and allows us to achieve a level of buoyancy, transcend, to break up to the surface of the king's ways, to come up higher. And we are to train our eyes to focus in that higher realm, locking our gaze, locking our vision, fixing our eyes and tuning our ears to the king's beauty realm and what the sights of it are and what the sounds of it are and what the services of it are. And once we get our eyes locked on those things and our ears tuned to those things, then to follow his protocols of discipline here on earth, to aspire to, seek first, meditate on, be inspired by, pursue, embrace, marinate in, rejoice in, delight in, absorb, carry, and emit certain things from our holy realm, the realm of home, the realm of beauty. And those are the majesty of the Holy One, the goodness of the Holy One, the shalom and the kindness of the Holy One. Oh, that permeate that realm. and bring it wherever we go. Becoming comfortable is what we're called to be. Comfortable, oriented to, acclimated to, and passionate about what the nations may think of as the unseen realm, where the unseen is more real to us, more substantive to us than the seen realm. That's our calling. That's who we're to be, people of the unseen realm, who can also function better than others in the seen realm. You see, as Shaul of Tarsus will later say, we do not focus on, scopeo in Greek, to fix eyes on, lock gaze on. We do not lock gaze on the things that are seen, but on the things which are not seen, the unseen. For the things that are seen and the world focuses on are temporary. But the things that are unseen, the things that are of the heavenlies, are eternal. Well, this week we're going to catch kingdom air. Whew. If you've ever been skiing or snowboarding and you come over a hill and all of a sudden you find yourself lifted up off the ground, you join the forces of gravity with you and your effort, and you find yourself soaring through the air, catching air as it's called. Well, this week we're to catch kingdom air. And we're to learn how to serve as courtiers in the courts of our heavenly King. And we're to do this even while our feet are still planted in, and we have relationships in, and responsibilities and commitments in this world. Well, it's time to find out a little bit about what levels of beauty and majesty and holiness surround the great Redeemer King that we serve. What is befitting to be, if we're in His presence, what kind of conduct, what kind of demeanor, what kind of attitude, what kind of mood, what kind of projection of who we are should we represent? We're going in His presence. If we have been in His presence, how should it change us? How should the world see us being different? What levels of beauty and majesty and holiness surround and befit the glorious Redeemer King, to whom we have pledged our love, to whom we have pledged our service, to whom we have pledged our troth in the heavenlies and on the earth? What kind of vision do we need? What kind of selfless dedication will we need to aspire to? What kind of disciplines will we need to adopt in our lives that can take us into our families with grace, with the kingdom ways, and into our nation, and into the world in a way that honors and glorifies our King and accomplishes His grand plan of redemption for mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline, household by household, as many as will come, and which brings also about a restoration of creation to its original intended Edenic state of beauty, fruitfulness, shalom, and harmonious interaction. What will it take? We're going to find out in the courts of our King. The disciplines, the protocols, the workstations, the ways. We're going to acclimate to the courts of the King. What will we find there? What kind of things can we expect to find in the holy place, the secret place of the Most High? Well, through Moshe's eyes, beloved, the Holy One is about to offer us a guided tour. We're supposed to be caught up in this. We're not supposed to read it as literature. We're supposed to be caught up in this. Something within us, our neshama, our DNA spiritually, is supposed to ascend with Moshe and ascend with these words, this Mishkan discourse of Creator speak, into this heavenly palace, the secret place that He has prepared for us to spend quality time with Him, even as I try to spend a little quality time with you around the Shabbat table each week. You see, there is a place, a makom in Hebrew, a wide, spacious, beautiful space, a sacred piece of geography, but it's in the unseen realm. And it's supposed to become our home base, the place where the atmosphere is supercharged with and radiates holiness, kedusha, energy, pulsing, vibrations, a sense that it awakens and inspires the dormant things of the spirit that have been crushed by Rosh, Shabbat, and Hamas. The atmosphere is supercharged with kedusha in this secret place. We need a place like that we can go. That's not all, though. In the secret place, in the courts of our King, in the heavenly palace, mercy triumphs over judgment. Judgment is real. Judgment occurs because it must occur, but it's tempered by wisdom. The wise man knows that there is timing and there is purpose for judgment, not just judgment for the sake of judgment. So mercy triumphs over judgment in the courts of our King. And we have to learn that because we don't want mercy to triumph over judgment. We want judgment to triumph and vengeance and vindictiveness and vigilantism. We want to see people get what's coming to them as we see it. We don't have the heavenly perspective yet until we spend time in the courts of the King and we see how in his courts mercy triumphs over judgment. We see in the heavenly courts that love casts out all fear. Oh, if there was any place that we should be afraid, if there's any place that mankind should feel unworthy, it would be the courts of the King. And yet he beckons up there to us and he says, come up here and visit with me. He calls us by name. He sets appointments with us and he welcomes us into his courts, into his royal throne room, into the place of judgment, but he shows us mercy. Well, love casts out all fear in the courts of the King. And shalom and joy abound. There is happiness. There is excitement. There is enthusiasm. There is not weeping and gnashing of teeth. There is not wringing of hands in the heavenlies in the place of the King. In the courts of our King, in the palace of our God, every vocalization, everything spoken involves thanksgiving and praise. Even if we're carrying forth a prayer request, we come out at it with thanksgiving and praise. We believe good things. We know we trust him for good things. And so everything is filtered through thanksgiving and praise and joy. In the kingdom's courts, where the tabernacle models on the earth, in the king's courts, the sights, the sounds, and the scenery are breathtaking. And the reverent awe is the only appropriate human response. Wow, that's what we're looking for, trying to find that place. So he's going to give us a tabernacle model, a model that we can build upon earth to bring those same characteristics of the heavenly courts down to earth. He's going to build in this tabernacle model workstations of kingdom of heaven, avodah. Things that go on in the heavens will take place on the earth, models of it, pictures of it. And every picture tells a story. Every picture of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle study, every picture of the tabernacle chapters of Torah tells a story of grace and mercy and redemption. Every picture screams of Mashiach coming and setting up his kingdom upon the earth. Every picture reminds us a little bit of Eden, past and future to come upon the earth. Every picture tells a story, and every workstation that we will visit, every furnishing, every workstation, every worship station in the tabernacle will call for a specific kind of discipline and service in us. It will make us who we are. It is not a belief system that makes us who we are. No, it is the service of the avodah, of the tabernacle workstations and worship stations brought to earth. And it doesn't matter to us now whether the tabernacle is physically present upon the earth or not. It is still part of our experience by virtue of being alive and operating in heaven. So this week, the things that we will learn about will be, first one is Terumah, the how do we get there? And that is the process known as Terumah, a voluntary gift of the heart. Breaking free of the bondages, letting him connect with us. See, he doesn't need voluntary offerings. He doesn't need our money. He doesn't need our gold, our silver, any of the things that he tells us to bring. He doesn't need those things. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and he created the heavens and the earth. He can create anything at will. He doesn't need those things to build the tabernacle upon the earth. We need those things. We need to engage with those things. We need to lift up, and only the voluntary, only those who willing, only those who wish to, only those who have caught the vision and are awestruck and are in love with the creator of the universe and his will and his ways and his beauty and his majesty. Those are the ones who he wants to build his his tabernacle. Those are the ones he wants to tell his story. Well, so we see Terumah is the first step in this vision. The second part of the vision is the words that he's going to use to describe this place, this secret place, this emissary, this embassy on earth. He's going to call it a Mishkan. Build for me a Mishkan, a place of Shekinah, a place of dwelling, abiding, residing. For me to live there. That is a stunning process that he is going to have us build for him voluntarily, from the voluntary gifts of our heart and the voluntary demonstrations of months of labor. We're going to build for him a place to abide, to dwell, to reside in our midst, right among us. He also uses the term mikdash. Mikdash. Build for me a mikdash. A mikdash is a different word from mishkan. Mikdash has a different verb at its root. Mishkan has shakan, which is to abide or reside or remain in that, or to live in that abode. But Mikdash has Kadash, meaning to bring the holiness energy with it. The Mikdash is a place where the holiness energy of heaven that fuels the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders to do what they do, and all the elders to throw down their crowns and do what they do and the angelic hosts of heaven to do the energy that draws, and that is supposed to be manifested upon the earth. That's why he called it the Mikdash. And then the third word he uses is the pattern, the tavnit in Hebrew. The idea is we're not building something unique upon the earth. Well, we are, but it's unique because it is a representation of something that already exists, has existed since the beginning of time, before time, in heaven. The tavnit. This is according to the pattern that he showed Moshe on the mountain. We are to build a mishkan, a mikdash, a tavnit, according to the tavnit. He's going to talk to us then about the workstations themselves and about the furnishings and about the way in which we are going to connect with our ultimate mission. He's talked to us first about the Aron. It's called Ark in the King James Version. The Ark of the Covenant is called the Ark of the Testimony, the Holy Ark, several ways of beginning. But he's going to give us the dimensions. He's going to talk to us about what's to cover it up, the kaperet, and what's to go inside of it. He's going to tell us that there's going to be tablets of testimony or witness inside of it. And he's going to tell us about this cover is going to be glorious and beautiful. It's going to look like the theme, the motif, the only motif of decoration is going to be these cherubim. We already heard cherubim before. We'll get to that in just a moment. But cherubim tell a story too. And the last time we saw them was, you guessed it, the Garden of Eden. They were put, a cherub was placed with a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. And now we re-encounter this cherub, the cherubim. And now we remember Eden, and we look forward to its coming back to earth. One conversation, one interaction, one transaction, one experience at a time. So after the Aron and the cherubim, come the shulchan, the table. And he tells us there's a workstation there. Something is supposed to happen, and because it's happened in the heavenlies, so it's supposed to happen on earth. And on the earth, that which is to be put on the table is the bread that reflects the face of the Holy One. Paneh, show bread. Lechem haponeh, the one that reflects his face. Now, that's supposed to be done on earth as it is in heaven. The shulchan tells its story, too. And then there's the menorah, the lampstand, the light caster. There is a light source in the heavenly realms. There is to be upon the earth. Whenever Mashiach says to us, you are the light of the world, understand, he is saying, this is your purpose. This is your duty, to become as this menorah that tells the story of the light of the world. And then there are the actual curtains, the yediot, and their materials that they're to be made of linen and goat's hair and ram skins dyed red, and the beaver, the sea bass, or whatever it is, different kinds of things are mentioned for the last one, the orot hatakashim. But there are different materials, and each one has different colors, and then there are dyes. There are special bright, brilliant colors that are supposed to dazzle the eye, but tell another story in the colors themselves. And then there's the brazen altar. Oh, this beautiful thing in the middle of the first court, and the fire, and the pleasing, fragrant aroma that's to arise at the place of surrender, at the place of a presentation of who we are in all our different phases, the different types of korbanot, the different types of, quote, offerings or sacrifices. I hope you learn not to use those words, those English words. Korbanot, the sense of bringing a part of who we are and putting it on the altar. This is the place of the pleasing, fragrant aroma. This is in the heavenly realms. This is also upon the earth. And whether there's a physical tabernacle to do these things in, it's not about animals in our hearts and in our lives and in our family homes and in our communities. We are to bring about the sweet, fragrant aroma, pleasing, fragrant aroma through surrender, almost. The brazen altar. Well, spoiler alert, there's a lot more to come. But each one of these workstations that you will see, each one of the descriptions that is given in the tabernacle chapters, are not just something that happened in the past that, why are we still reading this stuff? This is to tell you part of your calling and part of your mission. How to incorporate the services that were done at those workstations, at those furnishings, in your daily life, in your weekly life, in your testimony to the world, in your service to each other and to creation. Well, spiritual science, course 2 for intermediates. That's where we are now. Now, we learned in spiritual science course 1 last week when we talked about the fact that as there's for every force, there's an equal and opposite force. For every action, there's an equal opposite action. We learned about a little physical science last week. We remembered ourselves from Newton's third law. And we said there were also spiritual Newton's laws. And we learned a new Newton's law in this course 2 for intermediates this week. And that is the law of offsetting spiritual and physical parallels. It tells us what on earth as it is in heaven means in real time. If we say those words, on earth as is in heaven, we have to understand there is something happening in heaven. There is a series of things, and there is worship, and there is this total dedication. There is the will of the Holy One being done through these things in heaven. Now, to get to on earth as it is in heaven, we have to understand the law of offsetting spiritual, physical parallels. And that is this. I'm going to phrase it for you as I have tried to write it from looking at what the Torah tells me, teaches me, awakens in me. Be patient. It's going to take a little while. Let's walk through it. But here it is. Every object that the Holy One directs to be built and serviced in the earthly tabernacle. Every object, every workstation, the Holy One calls upon us to build or service in the earthly tabernacle corresponds to two things. First, an eternal reality that is related to the Messiah, that is in the heavenly Mishkan, in the spiritual realm. So the first thing that everything he tells us about in the tabernacle, that's to be built in the tabernacle or serviced in the tabernacle, corresponds to something in heaven, on earth, as it is in heaven. He wouldn't tell us to do it on earth if it wasn't replicating what was happening in heaven. Oh, if we understand that first part of it, we now connect to this is so important that we learn to bring the things of the heaven to earth through using the protocols that are being done in heaven in a way that makes it happen on earth. The second part of it, every object the Holy One directs to be built or serviced in the earthly tabernacle corresponds to also a relationship building truth, which each of us is to find a way to represent to the world in real time, in real life situations, in the course of our earthly walk with the bridegroom king, our witness with him and his witness with us. We're supposed to build relationships based upon our common experience of these building, these furnishings, the services done, the avodah done at each one of them, the eternal connection. We're to build relationships on earth. Our family relationships are supposed to be built upon it. Our marriage relationships are supposed to be built upon it. Our relationships with our children are supposed to be built upon these things. And we build these things in our own lives, and we model to our children and our friends and our neighbors and all who will listen will see and watch how to bring heaven to earth through these protocols. Oh, I know. You've never heard this before, perhaps. You've always thought of the tabernacle as some mysterious thing that was here for a short time and is gone. He says, no, that was just the introduction. The process is learning for my people to build it and make it happen every day. So welcome to the Mishkan Discourse. Pretty exciting, huh? Exodus 24:18 through 31:33 is what it's going to be. It consists of Parshot Terumah this week and also next week's Parshat Tetzaveh. It will be interrupted briefly, and then we'll go into more about the Mishkan. Much, much, much more. So I can say 1/3 of Torah is caught up with this whole story of the tabernacle. I have a name for the tabernacle studies, for the Mishkan Discourse and its sequelae. My name for it is the tent maker's dream. The Holy One is a great tent maker. He wants us to be tent makers too. He doesn't want us just to build a tent to sleep in overnight. He wants us to build a tent to bring to earth his kingdom in heaven. The tent maker's dream is to make heaven come to earth in the form of a tent. Just like a tent models after a house, so the Holy One's tent, the Holy One's tabernacle, models itself after the courts of heaven. Two parts to this week's discussions. The first one is the Terumah protocols themselves, the idea of ascending, how we ascend, and this idea of voluntary giving. The second thing is the blueprint and the specifications for the various different workstations and elements of the tabernacle that we'll talk about. Only part of it this week. We'll get more in next week. So, the Creator speak that we're engaging with the Holy One on is designed to acclimate us to his transcendent beauty and his courts and his presence. We are supposed to be inspired to hunger and thirst for communion with him in those courts, to say with the psalmist, how I long for the courts of the Holy One. To be a doorkeeper even in his courts is far better. A day in his courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will shakan in the house. Oh, here we go, in the courts of the Holy One forever. Well, we're supposed to hunger for this communion with him beyond the veil of the flesh, beyond the veil of the physical structures, into the passageway, the portals that lead us in realm traveling into the heavens, to his beauty realm, where we will be and understand we're welcome in the company of cherubim and seraphim and living creatures and 24 elders and ancients and the angelic host led by Michael and Gabriel and so many others. This is where we belong. This is what gives us our North Star, that we are connected to that place, not just to the things of earth. So it's time to find out a little bit about what levels of beauty and majesty and holiness are surrounding him and what kind of vision and selfless dedication, discipline he calls upon us to bring forth. It starts with the words, Vayadaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, and the Holy One spoke to Moshe, saying, Daber el B'nai Yisrael, Vahiku li terumah etel B'nai Israel, the children of Israel, to gather for me, unto me, a terumah. Me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo, from each man whose heart desires to give. Not from the unwilling, not from those who you have to browbeat. Me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo, from each man whose heart longs to give, desires to give. Tiku et terumati, you are to take from them my terumah. But what is a terumah? And it's not an offering, as we think about it. It's not that. It's something that causes us to ascend, to elevate. The Holy One knows what we need to get us out and break the bonds of earth's bindings. So it's that. The Terumah protocols. The Creator of the universe does not need any of the things he's going to ask us to give. If we realize that, we won't feel angry or offended or feel like He doesn't need these things from us. He's the creator. He can make them. He knows we need to embrace them. We need to invest them. We need to see the higher vision and dedicate something to it. So he tells us to bring him a terumah. Now, this teaches very clearly that the ultimate foundation of the kingdom is the willing and love-motivated human heart. If you're hard-hearted, if you're cheap, if you're selfish, come back later, another day when you're tenderized. If you're ready to give because you see the goodness of the King. Why would we give? Because we see how good he is and we want to be like him, and he gives. If the lamp of the body is the eye, Mashiach said, and if therefore one's eye is good, his whole body will be full of light. Now, by good eye, the Hebrew idiom is to say a heart that's willing to give, not take from people or from God. The lamp of the body is the eye. And therefore, if your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. If you're ready to give of a free and open heart, then we will explore this in great detail. Otherwise, it will be confusing to you because you will not understand why anyone would do this and why he would ask us to do these things. Why can't we just believe certain things? Why can't we just do the minimum to go to heaven when we die and maybe avoid the tax of the adversary, where we have riches and prosperity and get our fits nursed and our wounds healed and comforted by him? What if? But if we want to serve, if we want to be like him, if we're energized and empowered by who he is, we will be people of the willing, love-motivated human heart. I call upon you now. This is the first principle, the first idea of the Mishkan Discourse. The first critical step, the foundation stone. Get to that point. Look at him. Gaze upon his beauty. Gaze upon his majesty. Understand what he does for people and what he's done for you. Understand the honor you have of being called just to know him. And see him for his beauty of who he is. And let him work and build in you a willing heart and a good eye. As it says in the Torah, as the Master, as the Creator of the universe said, Me'at kol ish asher yidvenu libo. Tiku et terumati, from every man who volunteers willingly from his heart. Take up my terumah. Okay, so becoming a contributing part of this great nation requires us to do some things. We got to heal, because you see, here's the problem: traumatized people, victimized people, angry people do not give. If you're not a giver, it's probably because you fit in one of those categories: traumatized, victimized, wounded, angry. Becoming a contributing part of the great nation that the Holy One is building and wants to spread his news of goodness and hope throughout the earth requires us to find a pathway to healing from both our individual and our collective trauma. It's no coincidence, I don't think, that the Hebrew word terumah and the English word trauma consist of the same sounds. Trauma, terumah, it's all a matter of vowel pronunciation. And while there is no direct connection with trauma in the text, because English was not even thought of as a language until long after even the Brit Hadashah, New Testament, was put together, I think it's interesting that we chose this word trauma to express something that needs to be taken care of and healed before we can truly become people of terumah. You see, everybody in this earth, every human being, of every culture, of every economic class, of every gender, of every ideology, suffers trauma of one level or another. There's nobody that's exempt when you live on this earth. Privilege is a matter of figment of people's imaginations. It's something ideologues talk about to cause division between us. Everyone suffers trauma. It is the universal result of the fall. Healing from the effects of that trauma, dear ones, starts with what the Holy One does for us. When we realize what he has done for us, despite our brokenness, despite our wickedness, despite all of the things that we have been traumatized by. And when we realize what he has done for us, the grace he has shown us, the love he has shown us, the kindness he has revealed to us, when we realize that, then the trauma begins to heal. But it doesn't reach the point of viability until we actually begin to turn that around and do the same thing for him and for others. When we give that grace, that kindness, when we give things to each other, to him and to the world, then we realize the point of viability of healing has taken place. We're not just in the process of healing anymore. We're healed, and we're being healers as well. Giving is something that traumatized victims will not do. So, beloved, it is time for the healers to arise. And to arise from the ranks of the broken. To arise from the ranks of the wounded, the ranks of the traumatized. It's time to be healed and become a healer. It's time to be a giver, not a taker. It's time to be a spreader of light, as opposed to one who cringes in the darkness. It's time to learn to give generously instead of take for ourselves and hoard. It's time to build with enthusiasm and care and meticulous discipline instead of decrying what isn't right now, what can't be, what we find fault with, what we want to tear down because it's so bad. Instead of finding our focus upon those things, the negative, we have to build with enthusiasm and care and discipline the things that we desire to see the earth have upon it by virtue of what we've seen in the heavenly realms. It's time for healers. It's time for healers to arise from the ranks of the broken, the wounded, and the traumatized. And that means those who humbly fear and worship the Holy One, instead of demanding more and more from him, to seeking to get their own way and bending him over his promises to get what they want. It's time for us to bless and honor other human beings instead of disrespecting, cursing, mocking, and judging them. It's time to serve others voluntarily and joyfully instead of crying injustice and complaining and responding in negative ways. It's time to forgive instead of casting blame and nursing offenses. It's time to love unselfishly instead of hating and using other people. It's time for us to focus on giving thanks for and faithfully stewarding the material things we've been given upon the earth instead of coveting, wasting, and hoarding. It's time to exude tenderness and gentleness instead of bitterness and defensiveness. It's time to exude contentment instead of despair and to reflect shalom instead of rage, joy instead of sadness or depression or worry. It's time to get focused on and stay focused on and keep our conversations and our interactions and our actions engaged in long-term kingdom priorities, the things we see happening in the heavens, instead of fuming and ranting and raving and joining the scandal, drama, and justice of the month club. The process for giving, for investing in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, has an intrinsic importance in and of itself. It's not just a preliminary to building the tabernacle. It is the essential requirement for building anything more than what we can see on the earth, what Pharaoh would have had us to build. He wanted us to build storehouses for earthly things out of brick and slime. The Holy One has another idea. He wants us to build heaven upon earth, according to the beauty realm things that he shows us. So, our terumah that we're to put out and bring forth is a realm-traveling token. It's like you go to ride the bus or the subway, you have to give them a token. The terumah is our realm travel. If we're ready to realm travel, if we're ready to bring the kingdom of heaven to the earth, on earth as it is in heaven, then bring your terumah. It's something that empowers a person to overcome the gravity and the downward force of the earthly things and the Ra, the Shekat, and the Hamas. And overcome those things and reach buoyancy. Pop up and come and say, there's so much more than just suffering under the injustices that we see. All we can see is injustice and anger and offense. To reach buoyancy and thus access the portal that leads us to a new level of revelation, a realm that has more to do with eternal things, unseen things, than temporal things, the things that are seen. The elites and the sovereigns of this world, the governments of this world, the religions of this world, the ideologies of this world all want offerings and sacrifices from us. They only focus on the physical. What they can get from us is what they want. But the Holy One, our God, is not like that. He has neither need nor use nor appetite for such things. He has a creator's eye and a father's heart. He just wants his creations, his sons and his daughters, to overcome inertia of this fleshly life, to shake everything off that hinders them, and to ascend to their highest potential, what he envisioned for us, what he has declared over us, the purposes and mission he's called us to. But he knows that for us to do that, we have to dramatically alter the status quo by investing something that seems valuable to us in this realm, in his vision for them. So he says, Vayekuli terumah, take, gather for me, unto me a terumah. Amen. Amen. Lift up, arise. Get a thrust of energy in you that overcomes gravity and inertia, kicks off realm travel. Well, beloved, it's time for me to leave you. There's so much more for you to study and so much more for you to focus on and draw energy from the parsha known as Terumah. I pray that you will go through each workstation, each worship station. You'll say, how can I implement that avodah, that service, in real and tangible ways in my family life, in my personal devotion life, in my community life, in my world? And how can I bring heaven to earth? Well, until next time, Shabbat Shalom.